Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Wolverine issue number 41 and number 42. I read both of these. These were not that good. I mean, they were okay, and I don't know why I'm trying to fake it with you guys. These were amazing comic books that I read these books, both of them, and even just after the first one, I thought to myself, if they can continue this, this can actually be an arc, a 10 issue arc that could actually save an entire comic book company. That's how damned good this was. Let's talk about who made this comic book. I'll see you on the other side. We'll start talking about the book itself. So, Victor Lavelle and Benjamin Percy are the writers on this. Jeff Shaw and Corey Smith did the pencils. Shaw and Orrin Jr. did the inks. Alex Sinclair did all the colors, and VC's Corey Petit on letters. Lanil Francis Yu and Romulo Friaro Jr. did the cover art. A couple other various variant covers out there. Feel free to check them all out. This starts off with what appears to be Wolverine perched upside down, getting ready to launch at Sabretooth, who seems otherwise distracted on the ground, possibly eating. Oh, he is eating. He's eating the eyes of Cyclops, calling him Biclops now. Wow. Wow, that's not exactly how that works, but okay. Um, this Wolverine, pseudo Wolverine jumps down, and it turns out it's actually a feathered version of Sabretooth. He's a shapeshifter, but Sabretooth catches him. They're on the ship, by the way, and there's these what appears to be dead X-Men all over the place. Um, it's weird the way that this works, and there are all these headless robot type saber teeth, if you could. Can they be called saber tooth? They're just like they just got their claws going out. Anyway, some way somehow Sabretooth was able to invade Orcus and kill a bunch of people, and Orcus was going throughout time and dimensions and going to alternate Earths. They state clearly this is Earth 616 Sabretooth, but then there are other Earth Sabretooth all around them, Sabretooths around them. Him. Anyway, so there's multi-dimensional Saber. It's like the Council of Reeds, except with fangs instead. And of course, they're going to make good on Sabretooth, our Sabretooth, who's the leader of this retinue. They're going to make good on that idea of bringing pain to the X-Men for what they did to him, making up a law while he's in custody and punishing him for a thing that wasn't a crime until while they're in trial, making it a crime, and then punishing him for this crime that they just stated. Now, is Sabretooth a piece of garbage, and did he actually kill a whole bunch of humans, and should he be punished for it? Absolutely. But to make a new law on the spot, it's like you're basically saying, we never liked you. And it's hard to argue with that, but at the same time, when you disguise it as a law, of course that's going to piss some people off. You know, I mean, they could have just killed him and not resurrected him. Would that have been so hard instead of torturing him by sticking him at the bottom of Krakoa? Yeah, I don't think that was smart at all. That's how you make psychopaths. And if you make a psychopath out of a psychopath, I mean, nobody really needs to go into the measurements for what those ingredients will eventually make it. It's not going to be a very tasty cake, I'll tell you that. So this comic book was sick. I don't think I've ever read anything this bad without some kind of a label on the front, like What If or Marvel Max or Marvel Knights or something along those lines. Like, this is a terrifyingly messed up book. Do not show this to your kids, not even by accident, because this is really gory. There are multiple scenes in here where Sabretooth, or one of the many Sabretooths, are eviscerating someone, coming up behind them, putting his claws through them, and then tearing out. There's one particular scene in here that absolutely blew my mind with how good the art actually is in these books. And I was floored at how good it is, how much it conveys the evil, the hatred, the vengeance that is being drummed up in this issue. This righteous evil, as it were. This book is perfect in the way that it signifies that the people who are being hurt are typically, and by accident, by design, but by accident, very close to Wolverine. Quentin Quire, who is basically channeling Nick Cage in this with the Ghost Rider thing, and then being called the Wicker Man, and then that comment of, I'll be back before you can say not the bees, which is from the Wicker Man with Cage. A lot of Cage references in this around Quentin Quire. But Black Tom points out how Wolverine's always considered you one of his cubs or something to that effect. Laura is in this, and there's ominous portents in here where Wolverine says, if anything happens to me, you have to be the better me who continues on, and da 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 da. That's cute. And she's still kind of like, why are you saying these nice things about me? And Domino's right there, and he's being, fatherly with Dakin, right? Akihiro. He reminds him to always be aware of what's around him. Which, when somebody tells you that, you should recognize you're in a comic book and you're about to die if you don't do exactly what he says. So he doesn't. And the guy who's standing with him gets killed. And then he's alone, surrounded by these these Sabretooth, fleshy automatons, whatever they are, the headless children, as it were. There's an awesome Wasp song for you there. I'm going to spoil the end of this first issue number 41. Wolverine comes walking up, looking for Akihiro, says, did you finish butchering this and skinning this caribou? Because we got to go feed the people inside the tent here, the dome. And he said, and he looks and he sees "Happy Birthday" written out in the torn, shredded body parts of his son. It says "Happy Birthday." Back in the day, there used to be a comic book series that came out. Nowadays, everything's digital, so who cares? But unless you went to a comic book store, or God forbid, comic book conventions, which remind you just the big conference rooms at hotels where a bunch of people came in and put their comic books in there. And my comic book store doesn't have this comic book. Do you? What are you selling it for? Let's go see what he's selling it for. It was great. That's all it was. Nobody dressed up for the most part like the heroes. I mean, maybe if you wanted to, but it wasn't this big thing like we get now. It was actually just all about the comic books, not that car alarm that's out there. Why do people even do car alarms anymore? God, you freaking people. You kill me. You know that? Anyway. So it started off, I think, being called X-Men Classic, and then later started being called Classic X-Men. Where basically it was all of the old issues of the Uncanny X-Men, starting with Giant Size X-Men #1, which was the first appearance of the new X-Men, including Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, Nightcrawler, right? So it was just a reprint of these books. But at the end of each and every issue, there was 5 to 10 pages extra of brand new story that took place back during those days. I think it was issue number 10 of Classic X-Men, where I think it was called Happy Birthday, Bub. It was the first time that showed that Sabretooth, who was shown as a great nemesis of Wolverine because of the Mutant Massacre, would show up every day or night on Wolverine's birthday, sneak up on him, and tear out his throat. Well, Wolverine would, of course, heal it, but, you know, really weird stuff, amazingly weird stuff that would freak anybody out. You know, if you had any common sense about you. Amazing, simply amazing. And to see that in this was a great reminder of of that. The idea that Laura tried to give a wrapped present to Wolverine. We don't know what it is because in these first two issues, it just gets blood on it. It never actually gets unwrapped. I imagine it'll be unwrapped on the final issue of these 10 issue story arc of the Sabretooth War. It might be before that if it means something. It might be next issue, who knows. But this comes out bi-weekly. Every 2 weeks this is going to come out. And I'm so on this book. I'm going to be like fingers twitching waiting for the next issue to come out, man. Holy crap. So many of Wolverine's friends and beloved ones get killed. Wolverine gets tied up, not quite on a crucifix, but almost like he was being drawn and quartered, but not on the ground, standing up. Drawn and quartered is when your four limbs are tied onto a horse. One horse for this arm, one horse for this arm, one for this leg, one for this leg. And then they whip the horses and then they start running all in different directions and your limbs get ripped off. That's being drawn and quartered. But he was stood up, right? He was vertically drawn. And the only way for him to get out of it was to, in fact, rip off it, like pull so hard that he actually pulls his hand out of his wrist. That's not going to be a good fit. I was thinking to myself, why doesn't he just reach over and start untying the thing? But it's adamantium. It's pulled, it's tied. He might not be able to get that out, those out. So he rips this one out too, rips out his feet also. So he's just appendages with stumps on the end. He's still able to pop his claws. When you think about them, they're in the forearm. So I guess the stopper for it would still be back here behind the wrist joint, right? So these three adamantium claws popping out of these stubs, which means the claws are longer than normal because there's no fist there to to block this part of the claws. Amazing. Not the most realistic thing in the world. Maybe they're not. Maybe I know that he can control how far they come out. So whatever it is, he's controlling it anyway. And he's crawling to get inside to try and save even one of the X-Men. Aurora and Northstar, interesting choice, are actually the main heroes who are actually saving people in this, but people are being killed. There's a scene in here which reminds me of Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin goes in and sees the younglings. There are children, mutant children, being murdered in horrific ways in this comic book, in issue number 2. Not that I enjoy seeing that or I'm sadistic or anything like that, but this is how Sabretooth should be portrayed. Don't show Sabretooth ever if you can't use him like this. When Sabretooth shows up, it should be an event. It should be something that gets people to go, oh, shoot. That if you ever see Sabretooth, it's not like, oh, okay, so they're going to do some kind of a Sabretooth. No, it should be that if you see Sabretooth in the next issue, you should stop and be like, oh, shoot. It should genuinely make you tense up and know that some people are going to die, right? That's what this should be like. When Sabretooth shows up, it should leave people traumatized. It should make a genuine change in the status quo of the characters, the protagonists, and the side characters, the supporting cast in this particular comic book that we're talking about. And that's exactly what this does. This may be a comic book series, these 10 issues, that you read these and enough people pay attention to it. This could actually, if more people are realizing what we want to see, it's not that we want to see blood and murder, death, kill, and all that stuff. It's that we want to see characters, all characters, good guys, bad guys, heroes, villains, everybody, being treated the way that they were meant to be treated. Nobody wants to see Sabretooth show up and be like, I'm anti-Palestine because I'm the bad guy, so I'm going to do bad things and blah, blah, blah. And then the pro-Israeli heroes can show up and go after I don't want to see that. I don't want to see save Ukraine or Ukrainian flag on frickin' Thor's, clothing on his cape or something like that. And here comes Juggernaut and he's waving a big Russian flag. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see your personal politics in the comic books. I want you to get out of comic books and never show your face again or your pen. I never want to hear from you again. Go write some stupid blurb someplace. Nobody cares. We don't want to see you here. That's being gate kept. You can just go away. But as for the people who want to make the characters the way that they were originally designed, and you want to make a different way of portraying these characters, but it's still based around who they've always been. We don't look at this and say, this isn't the Wolverine I grew up with. No, I want all these characters to be the same characters I grew up with. I want them to be the characters I read as an adult. I want them to be the characters that moved me, that when they show up, I'm going to say, I don't know what they're about to do, but I know in general what they're doing and why they might believe the things that they believe. That's what I want. And I think that's what every comic book fan, long-term, short-term, or otherwise, wants out of their comic books. I was so impressed by this. I'm hoping that more people stop and say, you know what? We might just need to start making the characters the way that they've always been, long before we start hiring these schlups who are writing themselves in and their own ideals in. Yeah, some things simply shouldn't be up for grabs or optional. Some things should be mandatory. We need editors who are going to say, no, you suck. That idea sucks. Make something better. You got one more chance or you're out. You can't fire me. You know what? That was your second chance. You're fired. Goodbye. I want it to be like that. Yes, I do. Because there are plenty of people who may not be that well trained, but if you got good editors, then it doesn't matter. You can make good writers. And these writers will be indebted to you. And the readers will be all the more happy for it. This is the kind of comic book series that could save a company. If everybody else realized how good this is, if enough attention like through this video gets out to tell people, look how good this is, and then you go out and you read it, you buy it, you vote with your bucks. If more people buy these comic books, it's going to send some kind of a message to Marvel. At some point, they got to be able to translate that. Guys, I loved this, and I'm positive you're going to love this too. Like the video, watch an ad, get this comic book. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.